record this. I am Jonathan.
Good to meet you, Jonathan.
Nice to meet you. And welcome to the Campus Co-Evolve field.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really an interesting course. I saw the website for Campus Co-Evolve and I was interested right away, just in the general theme, the style, and the message that was contained inside the descriptions and that sort of thing. I thought was really rich. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. And how did you first find us? What brought you to campus?
So yeah, one of my students actually recommended it in a WhatsApp group I'm in, and to a group of students. We have a sort of WhatsApp group from a shared experience we ran a couple of years back, and every once in a while somebody drops a link to something interesting in there, and I saw the link and thought, oh wow, interesting. So yeah.
Oh, interesting. Neat. So is this something related to one of the meta theories, like integral theory, or?
Not at all, actually. This was a kind of personal and professional development program for cultural entrepreneurs to teach them how to catalyze their works, get visibility, raise funds, a lot of very basic stuff like logistics of life stuff too. But a lot of that is the foundation for this work anyway. So, but the topics we share really go way beyond that too sometimes. So it's fun.
Oh, okay. Fabulous. And do you have some background in the meta theories like integral theory or spiral dynamics or theory U or any of those?
Spiral dynamics, yes, a little bit. I think perhaps not all the terminology and specifics, but like if I just throw out, huge Buckminster Fuller fan, I've been following a kind of consilience approach to life and life development, and I mean, in the background, I think spiral dynamics and that approach was sort of the underpinning for this third place that I started in the US way back in 2002. So it was kind of really basic, we wove that sort of idea into the DNA, but I'm excited to see what else can be learned about that stuff as well from this program. So
cool. Yeah, so I mean, the class is all about sort of applying it, so it's not a super heavy theory course in that way. It's more about applying it, figuring out how to incept ideas, design them, execute them, and do that in a way that honors all the different kind of realities of different people. So really the secret is the class is an operating system upgrade for your mind, a cognitive upgrade for your mind. And so people have pretty amazing experiences. Do you have media experience as well or any of that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so both as a performer and as a producer, I've been involved in a lot of theater, a couple of films. I've done a lot of media publishing and hosting and things like that. For like, I don't know, about I think 9 years, I ran a network of third places in the US. So we would host regular online discussions between members, between like the founders, the board members and stuff to share ideas and practices. And we produce a lot of media out of that. But, and right now I'm working on a project that's really a transmedia project. I'm creating a mosaic of the planet using images of 10,000 human irises. So I've been for like 16 years photographing people's eyes, really high resolution macro images. I have 8,800 so far, so I'm close to the finish line. And then I'm using an AI that I've trained to sort of scan the earth and look for the places where the patterns in the eye look like the terrain and then build the mosaic out of that. So, wow. It's a big thing and it's close to finish. So I'm thinking a lot about that and how I can magnify the story, because that's obviously really a kind of, it's called Eyes of Gaia. And I mean, we're talking about linking to the world and linking to our place in it and feeling a sense of connection and responsibility for something bigger than ourselves. That story can be told through eyes and through maps, and I'm really interested in how to convey that too with media.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great project. And that's definitely, we're interested in upgrading your operating system, but also then training 1 million media makers worldwide to be able to do this so that they can then create media that helps to evolve individuals and cultures, because media can do it at scale, which is one of the reasons media is so powerful. And it's also, a lot of the people who are making transformative media are really only communicating to like-minded people. So there's a little bit of a bubble there, or an echo chamber. And they're
Yeah.
not actually reaching out to the people who don't think like them already, which is what we have to do, because the real dangers are,
You know, I always talk about in talks about third places, you know, and I'm just saying like makerspace, hackerspace, co-working, artist collective, places where people create together, free of barriers, often intergenerationally, in a collaborative way. I think they embody a lot of these practices without noticing it. And they're really diverse populations, and they're sort of just doing it, and they don't have terminology, they don't have names for a lot of these ideas, but they're just living it and doing it every day. But
right.
I always talk about the door. I mean, the door is the most important piece of technology in every school, in every third place, because you know whatever we got inside doesn't matter. But the door is the moment when I decide to participate or not, when I decide to be a part of it or not, and when I kind of almost go through the airlock of transformation to go from a world where things like collaboration, participation, transparency may not be valued in a very daily way to a world in which those are just norms.
Mm.
How do I adapt to be there?
Yep.
The door is the most important part. And so, like you said, the bubble, like, how do we put a door in the bubble, right? That sort of both moves us out and them in. So we, you know, start to exchange things. It's a critical question. I love
Right. Right.
that.
And one of the concepts of integral theory is that every stage you move up actually transcends and includes the previous stages. But until you get to the integral structure, you can't really see the earlier stages. So even people who are pluralistic, who are like, well, we're all equal and everyone's truth is true for them, and a lot of sort of core pluralistic ideas, those can become pathological, just as the rational and the mythic and each of the ones below that have all become pathological. So our situation now in the US, and I'll send you, we have the video that Mark and I did called The Big Picture of the Now, where Mark kind of expounds on this. But our real problem is that we have three structures of consciousness that are fighting it out for power in the US: mythic, rational, and pluralistic. And each of those has become pathological. And our technologies are now one or two stages ahead of that.
Right, right,
So the
right.
internet is a pluralistic technology, but the smartphone is an integral technology. And we now have transpersonal technologies, which are merging biology and machines. All that is coming online now, and it's happening. So we have a situation where our technologies are way in advance of where we are. We have mythic people who are using all these modern technologies and weaponizing them as well. So that's sort of our problem. And the real secret to this course is that it's really not about the project, even though it is, you do a project in it, but really it's about the journey, about embodying these ideas. And we've discovered that when we just taught about them, people didn't get them the same way they did when they actually tried to work on a project and try to embody
Sure.
it into
I mean,
practice.
yeah, that's
So that,
constructionistic.
so we
Yeah,
had, I mean,
hands-on
as
learning.
far as the, right, as far as the projects we had somebody who made a sort of fake commercial for sleep, which was sort of done as a pharmaceutical commercial, but then the punchline was that all these amazing things can happen if you just use this free non-chemical thing. It's called sleep, 8 hours a night every night. So that was cool. We had somebody else who just walked around an ancient library in Germany and did one single shot inside this library and kind of narrated it in a poetic way. We had somebody else who did like a really cool meme video. We had someone else was promoting her app. So it was really the journey, and a lot of people, and pretty much everyone who took the class said they had profound shifts in their perception of self, other, and world. It just expanded their perceptual horizons.
Yeah. What did you say the three things were again? I'm drawing as we speak here, so I wanted to make sure I got it. Pluralistic.
The
The three poles of thought in the U.S. right now. The three
Oh yeah,
dominating
well, so actually there are structures of consciousness, and we'll
pathological.
go over those. They're structural actually in your brain, the way your brain works. So it starts out archaic, and then there's magic, and then mythic. But right
Yep.
now it's mythic, rational, and pluralistic are the three that are really
Okay.
fighting it for power.
Okay.
And
That's what I
integral
want.
is kind of coming online. That's the next one up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what we like about integral theory is it's really just an attempt to describe the integral structure of consciousness. You don't have to know anything about the theory if you're at that structure. And there are some filmmakers and artists who are there. That's what you're talking about, how people don't necessarily have a language for what they're talking about, but people who start to realize that there are multiple truths, but some truths are higher than other truths from certain perspectival fields. And it's not like all truths are the same.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
until
Yeah.
you get to the integral
Exactly.
structure, you can't really see the earlier structures. So you just think, those people are terrible people because they think this way.
No, I mean, it's true that distance gives perspective when we're talking about a holarchy and our distance along its, nested complexities, or when we're talking about on physical Earth and our perspective of a faraway object in 3 dimensions. I mean, it's logical. It makes total
Hmm.
sense. We would be fun. We would be able to see things more clearly the more we've progressed in structure.
Right. As you kind of evolve, you transcend and include the previous structures. So our technologies are already more advanced than the people. And if you look at how
Yeah,
much, I would say it was from when we went through like the Industrial Revolution, which was only one stage where our technologies came online as rational, but a lot of the people are still mythic, coming off
yeah,
of feudalism essentially. And the technologies actually helped move the people as people started using these rational technologies, machines that were more complexity and ultimately electricity and things like that. They evolved the culture, but there was a lot of struggle when the machine age came online.
oh
A lot of
yeah.
people got left behind, and that was only one structure of consciousness shift. Now we
Yeah,
still have people who are at mythic, and yet we have technologies that are really advanced, and so all these things are.
it's future shock, straight up. I mean,
Yep. So yeah, there's a lot
yeah,
of that.
yeah, definitely. I mean,
So so
yeah,
you're working on a project now. Did you have a project in mind for this class that you want to work on well, or sort of specifically kind of work on incepting and designing and
it's. I mean, I'm interested in the meta right now. I mean, the projects. I have projects. They're always linked together. The linkage isn't always clear to me. Um, I'm sort of listening to what the world's telling me to do and then following and seeing what that feels like. And I just have the more global sense that uh, there's a pending integration, let's say, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. I have ideas, but I'm very, after a lifetime of very many ideas, I've learned to approach them without attachment and a certain level of
yeah. Well, you don't.
patience.
Yeah, you definitely don't have to have a project for this. You're just curious
Right.
about it. And then
Yeah, I mean,
also, what's your quarantine situation? Are you living alone, or do you have kids that you want to bring into your project a little bit, or?
I do. They're in another continent.
Oh,
I'm in
okay.
France. They're in the U.S. And it may be that I involve them at times. Depends on. We talk often, so we'll see
Right.
what comes through. And I am quarantined, but I'm not alone. So yeah,
Oh,
my
okay. So
project
yeah,
is really
because that's so that you can involve family or kids too if you want. You can make it
sure.
because we know there are people who have kids that they're stuck in the house with now. So
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that's cool that you're being inclusive in that way. I mean,
yeah,
daily life's intrusions are quite visible at the moment. And actually, I hope we don't go back to the way that it was and that we stay in this slow way with freedoms, like going out and all that, but not rampant consumerism. It'd be great if we just kept it paused even longer. I know it sounds traitoristic to say such things, but what a great time of reflection this has been for
yeah.
everybody.
It's for some people it's a great time. For other people it's a horror.
It's a horror, yeah. It's a
Yeah, and
total
I
horror.
and you're not in the U.S., but the U.S. is collapsing fast. So I don't know what's going to happen.
I see it. I mean, I'm still American, and I pay
Yeah.
attention every day to the. I mean, you took your bleach today, right? Did you? The Clorox chewables
Oh
that
yeah,
we keep getting out.
I swigged a little bit.
It's just mind blowing. I can't. I can't.
Yeah, and
Can't get
the
it.
problem is our media is part of that rational industrial structure, so they have to
They
cover
can't
it if
just
it
turn it
makes them
off.
money. If it makes them money, they have to cover it. So they're like a cancer that will literally eat itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what we're
It's a
dealing
mental
with
diet.
here. So where are you
It's
in
a mental.
Paris or?
Yeah, I'm in Paris. Yeah,
Oh,
been here
well,
for 4 years.
oh, nice. What are you doing in Paris?
The first, so yeah, I mean, I came here in 2011 originally. I first worked here like back in '99 for 9 months when I was working for like big software. Think of it like that.
Mhm.
And then I came back in 11 because I'd done my little TED talk about collaborative spaces and the future of education, and then the president of a university that was starting out here asked me to come because they wanted to learn how to make their university more um, constructivist, more hands-on learning, more interdisciplinary engagement. And so I came and started helping them and helping kind of build the place, and then came here in 16 just to kind of do a really focused project. It was, you've heard of McKinsey, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So this was
Famous.
like after, yeah, after the McKinsey people had come in and done their sort of hyper rational, super probing, needed to kind of feel things again because McKinsey's not a very there's not a lot of empathy involved in the approach there. You know, I mean, I don't think they'd appreciate some of the things we've talked about in the last 5 minutes. But they charge a lot, don't they? Anyway, came here to do that, and then I stayed and did a couple of other projects, and also really wanted to, I'm kind of making the transition from a former state of actualization in my work to a different state, and trying to sort of actualize what it means to be an artist for me as also as a career choice. And so that's been a little bit of the reason why I've stayed here. It's a rich environment to explore that dimension and learn. There's a lot of brains here, like in the Bay Area as well. You know, I'm from Milwaukee, so it's not like there's, you know, we're missing some of the diversity of humanity that we can explore in places like Milwaukee a little bit for me.
Yep. But every place is changing now because of the internet. I think it's flattening that a little bit.
It has quite a bit flattened it. Even then it did, but there's something irreplaceable about
A
the
concentration.
physical. Yeah, atoms. I mean, atoms, neurons, and electrons, right? Those are triangles. And I mean, you got to build with all three. Triangles are super resilient structures. You know, I got to work with atoms too, and neurons. I mean, just direct exposure to neurons. It's better than this electron filtered version of exposure, you know?
Right. Definitely. And so what do you hope to learn in the class? Do you have any particular like goals for the class, or what you're thinking, oh, this one will be?
Well, you know, I'm interested in learning how my collaborative practices work in this environment now. You know, just and how yours work, like being a part of a collaborative group. That was something that appealed to me from the class descriptions and what the two testimonials said. What they, you know, they both made a point of bringing that up, and I thought that was appealing as well. I'm hoping to learn about. I'm hoping that what I learn shines a light inside of me that helps me see the way to express some of these ideas more clearly as media. I'm hoping to learn the discipline from having a framework of production. So just, you know, producing something, even though I know that's not the main objective, I think it's an appreciable backdrop. And then I'm also just interested in how, again, as learning, theory and practice to me are pretty intertwined. I mean, I don't have a high school diploma. I'm a completely uneducated, unschooled person. So I'm an autodidact, and everything I've learned it by doing it, reading it, studying it. And so that's what I'm interested in, seeing how this subject matter holds up to that modality, right?
That's cool. I
Yeah.
think you'll dig it. Do you have any questions for me about the class or about?
Just, I mean, kind of like, what's the logistics and the volume and the intensity of activity? What can I expect it to be like?
Sure.
I mean,
Well, we meet once a week, and that was another question. That's looking like that meeting will probably be Mondays at 11 a.m., which would be an hour before this. So, because it's now 12 p.m.
that's
here,
fine.
so it
Yeah,
would be, I guess,
8
7 p.m.
p.m.
Oh,
or 8
8 p.m. Are
p.m.
you
Yeah,
9
7
hours?
p.m. It's 9 p.m. now. So
That's right. So
yeah, UK time it'd be 7, Central it's 8. So yeah,
9 hours. Yeah. So
perfect.
that's mainly because last time we had people on 4 continents, including someone in Singapore. So we did it 11 p.m. So it was the early morning in Europe and 3 in the afternoon in Singapore. I don't know if we'll have anyone there. So tentatively, we're looking at 11 a.m. California time, which would be 8 p.m. I guess your time.
That
So if
works
that works.
great. World Time Buddy is our friends, right?
That's right, exactly. So I mean, essentially, it's 14-week class. So the first week is an orientation, which we just go over what's going to happen, and here's how the Moodle platform, which is a platform they use, an educational platform, is very
Ah,
easy.
Moodle, cool.
You know, Moodle, yeah. There's not too
Yep,
much Moodle, and then there's an
super.
introduction, and then there's 12 weeks of which is 4 modules of 3 weeks each. And the modules are Inception is the first one, which starts with a lecture. And basically, we're meeting once a week for an hour and a half Zoom. So it's a 90-minute Zoom on Monday. And there'll be a lecture for the first one with Mark talking about inception practices, and he'll give you some practices to do. And then there's also community of practices during that. And then the next module is the design phase, because once you've kind of come up with different ways to incept an idea, he goes through some of the things about designing in an integral way, because the traditional Hollywood thing is you write a script and then you find someone to make it and all this. And if you're designing integral works, you really have to kind of think more about the visuals and about everything all kind of at once, the music, sound,
That suits me.
pacing,
Yeah.
rhythm, and so synchronization of the senses, and talks about different theories, stuff that he's come up with that are sort of practical theories, I call them, because they're actually very practical.
Great.
We've got a series of videos we'll send you as well. So, and then there's the design one, and then there's one that's the production, post-production module, which is kind of 3 weeks of doing whatever project you want to do. And then there's the last one is the reception module, because how you then receive a work after all that is another whole element of the full spectrum of how an artwork happens, or how an integral.
Of course.
So it's those four. So as I say, we're meeting Monday. Typically, we'll also have a community of practice meeting probably on Wednesday. That's what we did the last time, which would be another 90-minute Zoom that's optional. And anyone who wants to can come to that one, and you can either bring your project, say, I'm working on this, and I'm having this struggle or this idea, trying to come up with something, or you can just bring up another topic you want to discuss. Like I saw Messiah, and that was a trip, and I don't know what to make of that or whatever. So we talk a lot about whatever's new, whatever integral things are happening now. So if you want to do both of those, it's 90 minutes. And then you're also going to be divided into some groups. So you'll have a group of 3 or 4 people. That'll be kind of your key group, and you'll want to make time to meet with them at some point on Zoom. That works well with you, so you can discuss your projects. Because then we also have you track not only what your personal edges are and how you've changed in it, but also what is the group dynamic. So what are some things that were individual to you, and what were things that the whole group experienced, that everyone experienced. And it was really cool because people started to get a group field. And George Poor, who runs Campus Co-Evolve, is sort of a pioneer of collective intelligence. And he actually took the class last time, and he might take it again this time because he was so kind of blown away by it and how rich it was. And it was great having him on board because he's sort of a master at creating these collective intelligence fields just by saying the right thing, and kind of bring people together. But he has a kind of idea between a learning community and a community that learns. So the idea is that when you first get together, you're a learning community, just all trying to learn stuff, and you learn from each other. But then there's a point where the community actually becomes an entity in itself, and the community learns. So the community gets more intelligent. That was some. So it's kind of a neat distinction. And our goal is to create a community of practice that continues beyond the class. And in fact, some of the people from the previous class might join our community of practice sessions. Who knows,
Great.
So it'd be great to kind of build that community so we get more people in that field. And when we get enough, we'll probably start a separate community of practice, but we need to have a large enough group of people that it can sustain itself and someone who's willing to step up to run it,
Was the current, just as a kind of background question for this, was the current situation an impetus for you to discuss, doing this now and in this way? And what would you see as your long-term thing? Because for me, right, I'm interested in, and in the class description, it kind of read like, what can we do now? And I appreciate that thought, and that's a motivation for me. But I'm also really concerned about after, right, and what we do when, I don't know, in the stages of after that are coming, let's say.
Right. Well, we ran the class already once before the quarantine, so before coronavirus, so it's not going to change that dramatically from one to the other. It was George's idea to kind of shift the whole campus to this really key question now because this is an opportunity for us, as you say, to all stop and think, what does the world look like after this? Do we want to go back to where we were, or is it time to change? And I think there's a lot of questions that are maybe outside the scope of integral cinema, theory, because it touches on every domain of human existence that's being affected.
Yeah, definitely.
And people are starting to think in more systemic terms. So obviously we're shifting it to that as an interest because it's such a key thing. But yeah, obviously it also has the class is going to essentially be the same class we did before with, maybe a little bit more laser focus here, but it's got applications and just how to create integral works that speak across multiple domains.
Yeah. Okay.
In that sense.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I like. Yeah. I'm sorry, my internet was just a little flaky there. Are we still good? Can you still
that's okay.
hear me?
It seems fine.
Yeah, no, oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
So the formats, maybe we're out of sync here.
Just for a second, it seemed like it's
how many fingers am I holding up?
9. Yeah, I can see that. I've got you perfectly.
It's the lag test.
Oh, is there a lag?
3 minutes, 5-second delay. Yeah, that was my lag test.
Wow. All right, I think we're back now.
Yeah.
I guess.
It seems like it. Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so, what should I prepare for the introductory session?
Well, we will actually, there'll be an orientation session first. So the introductory session, you don't really need to prepare anything for any of these. If you want, well, when we send out a packet, I'll also then, once we have the cohort, I'll send everyone a basic article on integral theory and also some videos that we did. We have a set of videos that are the first 5 of a set that's going to be 10 keys for more powerful media. And we've done the first 5, and they're things like know your structures of consciousness. You can kind of look at those, but we're going to go over all that stuff as well. So you can start by reading more integral
What
theory,
sort of what?
introduction to integral theory.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah,
I
we've
will
got a
take a
guide.
look at that. Very. Yeah, I will look at the integral theory introduction stuff very hungrily. That's very interesting.
Yep, cool. Just kind of get that idea of what a meta theory is. But it sounds like you already looked at that before. You have some knowledge of that.
It feels like I've had a lot of practices that are similar here. I mean, I've done a lot of collective intelligence work. I've done a lot of unconferences and hosted them and like worked in the thick, messy human domain of this, but this probably will serve as one of my first real, again, understanding this isn't theory, but introductions and structured systematic walkthroughs of it. It feels like I've gone all around this all my whole life, but I didn't know what was in the middle.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'd say what's great about what Mark developed, it's sort of the first really strong applied sort of application of integral theory to the moving image, but to any kind of domain of art. And a lot of people who studied integral theory a lot, when they, like people who did this class who were very familiar with integral theory, they also still were like, it just made it alive in a way that I never experienced before. It altered my perceptual field. So it wasn't
yeah,
just theoretical. It was like, oh, now every politician I see, every person, every situation, I'm just seeing the 4 quadrants.
right.
I don't know if you know about the
Yeah.
4 quadrants, which are the 2 interior ones and the 2 exterior. So you have the interior individual and the interior, and the individual interior and the individual exterior. And then there's a collective interior and a collective
Oh,
exterior.
sure. I mean, this sounds a lot like I can't remember his name at the moment, but he gave a really good quadrants for basically for a good structure for reality. Again, you have transcendence, dissolution, community, and identity. Everything on the same plane is both an individual and a member of a community of its likes. It dissolves into lesser and transcends into higher things. It's such a nice, holarchic framework, and this
Right.
sounds like so. For visual languages for this stuff, have you? A lot of what we've been talking about, kind of in my mind, it appears like a Prezi. I'm sure that's a tool you've used or played with.
Like which?
Prezi,
Prezi?
Prezi,
I don't
yeah.
know Prezi.
It's a not well. It's been around since '07, but it's a nonlinear presentation tool. So it's for doing what you use PowerPoint to do, but it is done in a kind of nonlinear pan and zoom manner instead of being a linear, here's one slide after another after another after another. What if what we need to do is explore a map, and we're having a conversation and we don't know where we'll go, because maybe when we get to the first crossroads we'll follow the old guy who waves a banner at us, and maybe we'll instead go towards the dark cave. We don't know, and maybe when we get to the cave we'll say let's go backtrack to the forest, and that's fine. It doesn't punish you in the way that PowerPoint kind of does for
Right.
that sort of, and it lets you portray something as a visual metaphor. So you can say, look, this is the whole big idea, but now we can zoom in and explore each of its parts while kind of keeping that mental frame of we're still talking about something that this is a part of a bigger idea.
Right.
It's a visual hierarchy. You might like it. It just is the sort of thing that it's such a great backdrop for talking about things like this, where
It's a little like mind maps.
you know what, you could say that, although in my map I think of that as being a planar representation of something. Everything is on the same level, and you can, yes, collapse and expand the trees, or you might just throw down a bunch of circles and draw lines to them. They can certainly look and function like that, but the idea that you can then create that serial linear experience by putting frames around specific points on the journey and then explore those things together, that is what makes it different from a mind map.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a little linearity when you want it, but doesn't stick you in linearity.
Interesting. Yeah, because we use the mind maps in this. We'll have people do mind maps for their kind
Yeah.
of idea, just to map out ideas and see what directions the branches can take you and see where it goes and just be very
Mm-hmm.
free, So that's part of the practice. Oh, that's cool. Did you
Cool.
have any other questions about the class or, uh,
Um,
I
I don't
mean,
think so.
our
How many
estimate is
people are
like 5
typically?
hours a week, but I mean,
All right.
not like there's
Great.
homework. We're not assigning books or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some practices that we'll ask you to do that can just help you that are sort of,
Sure.
perceptual practices.
What's the typical size of the group in general? Like, how big is a
Hopefully
community?
around 10 to 12. I think we might have 14 signed up this time. And,
Okay,
the more the
that's
better,
excellent.
up to a point, obviously, but it's just nice. You get a nice field of people, especially as we get people from all over. We might have one from South Africa this time again. Last time,
Fantastic.
one of the women in the chorus had been a dean of a film school in South Africa, who was then retired, and now she's the dean of Campus Co-Evolve because she was so kind of blown away by our class that she just came
Ah,
up.
that's cool. So I mean, is this organization itself a kind of like, it sounds very open and permeable and sociocratic and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's George started it to be kind of a collective intelligence organization to kind of bring in a lot of the best people and help train other people to be change makers. Or he likes to say change artists. Originally, he had a class that was called From Change Maker to Change Artistry.
it's way better.
So yeah, although I think he changed it again after the COVID happened, so he has a new name on his class now. But that's kind of
Change artistry is nice though.
he's been
I mean,
doing trainings and things like that for 40 years or 30 years.
okay, very cool.
Amazing guy. And I guess the only other question is, I don't know if you know, there's a suggested donation for this. It's kind of a pay what you can. And the suggested donation, I think, is £350, which is like $430, something like that. Is that a problem, or is that something that works for you?
For me, actually, it is a problem right now. But I think by July it won't be. So I'm kind of in a bad economic state at the moment. But I'm expecting to climb out of that relatively quickly. So
Okay.
I don't know what you think makes sense. Should I just wait for a future enrollment and try
No,
again
I
when
mean,
I
you
have
can
money?
take the class whenever. I say it's a pay what you can. I mean, I would say you should probably talk to Anna, who's the finance fairy. She calls it Anna at Campus Co-Evolve,
Okay.
and she can sort out if there's a payment plan or if you just want to make a small donation to start
Okay.
something later. We just
And she's just Anna, ANA at campuscoevault.org.
ANNA.
ANNA. Thank
Yes,
you.
and you'll probably be hearing from Samira or one of the other people there because if you registered, have you registered or applied?
I did. I went on I don't know. I went on the website, I filled in the form, answered all the questions.
Okay, so yeah, you're applied probably, and so they're going to get in touch with you, I'm sure, about
Okay.
about payment and that kind of stuff, and try to send out a
Okay.
packet for you.
Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
cool. So
Well,
yeah,
thank you very much for your time.
absolutely, it's a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to engaging you further and seeing you in the class with all the other people. I have a lot of pretty cool people actually in the class so far that I've been talking to.
Oh,
It's going
that
to be
sounds
a fun
great.
cohort, I think.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank
If
you.
you have any other questions, you can always email me or whatever. Let me know.
All right, we'll do.
Awesome. Nice to meet you. Have a
Nice to
good
meet you.
evening.
Have an excellent day. Thanks.
Salut. Au revoir,
Salut.
monsieur.
Au revoir. Ciao.
Ciao.